Good morning or good afternoon, and welcome to this, the 16th in the series of Lunchtime Learning. Today we're going to talk about learning from incidents, learning lessons from incidents. Now, I think in the previous one, number 15, we did a very compressed session on cyber incident response planning. And this was one page in it, but today it's not so compressed, so we can relax and let's just focus on learning lessons from incidents. We do have, as I said, plenty of others in this series, and if you're interested, check out our YouTube channel. Okay. Many of you are returning visitors, so welcome back. And for those who don't know us, quick introduction. We see ourselves as risk and compliance professionals like many of you guys. We're members of different organizations, institutes, like the Institute of Risk Management, Compliance Ireland, and various ones, through which we try to keep our skills sharp so that when we're talking to you, we can discuss your challenges and solutions with you. Indeed, we offer a SaaS environment, our in-house governance, risk and compliance solution, a very comprehensive solution. Happy to talk to you about that. And our customers are primarily in the financial services sector, but we do have a lot too in the not-for-profit area. So that's us. Those of you who have been here before know I always like to put a quote in. This is probably one of the longer quotes, but I've taken it from a book that I've been reading called Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. And the book is all about learning from mistakes. And I like this quote. It's about the willingness and tenacity to investigate the lessons that often exist when we fail, but which we rarely exploit. We even hide them. It's about creating systems and cultures that enable organizations to learn from errors rather than be threatened by them. And that's the essence of his book, that if we hide our mistakes, hide our errors, we never learn. Whereas an organization that fosters that culture has a just culture, a no blame culture, and encourages people to put their hand up and say, I made a mistake. Fine, fix the process. It's not the human that's at fault. A small percentage of these things are due to, if you like, the human. It's the process is defective. So learn. I thought I would look to what the regulator is saying. Often it is wisdom kind of encapsulated, and many of you will know the guidance from the regulator on outsourcing and on resilience. And this is taken from their cross-industry guidance on resilience. Now, you might say to me, but we don't need to be compliant with that. No, you don't. But this is just common sense, and I thought I'd put it up here. A lessons learned exercise should be conducted after a disruption to a critical or important business service to enhance a firm's capabilities to adapt and respond to future operational events. Now, whether you're obliged to comply with these guidelines or not, doesn't this make sense? Which is why I say, we all knew that. We know we can learn and improve. And I would say it's not just from incidents, but I would be encouraging you to test your incident response plans in what are referred to as scenario exercises, plausible but believable, credible scenarios. You'll find mistakes in your plans, you'll find errors, omissions. Learn from those as well. Okay, so assuming, and there's quite a bunch of you here today, that you're all already convinced you can learn from mistakes, you can learn from incidents. Let's move on. I thought, kind of to give you the context, we spoke about this in a previous webinar about the contents of an incident response plan. And yes, you prepare for incidents, try to prevent them, identify them, respond to them, recover. And when it's all over and the dust is settled and the fire is out, you do a post-mortem. You say, well, how do we handle it? And does the plan need updating? And do we need to add others? This is the review. This is what I'm essentially talking to you about today. But it starts a little bit before that. It starts, when the incident happens. If we're talking about an incident, and it could be a scenario, you need to log information. You need to start logging the information as the incident is unfolding, because later you won't remember the detail, and it's in that detail of the logging that is the intelligence, I see. And I've done it. I've been there. And later when I say logging, you have a blank form that has, the date, the time, and maybe the people involved. If it was a team meeting, which team, what decisions were made. It's like a minutes of meetings, if you wish, but with timestamps, so that later you can forensically look and see when was this decision made. Because with this information, you can possibly improve how you respond and make some decisions earlier. But I think also that, if you have to demonstrate to your insurance provider that, look, we responded quickly and we did everything that one could do to minimize the damage and the consequences. I mean, that's part of your responsibility in most, I would say, insurance policies. So yeah, in your response form, have that blank form in your response plan, so that you're not creating this in the heat of the moment. And if you have one, or if you have multiple teams, depending on the size of your incident, it might be a good idea to nominate a scribe, somebody who will write this and keep the details, who's not involved in anything else. Trust me, it's invaluable later when you're trying to learn from the incident. So let's say the incident is over, you've managed it, and you're back to normal. You've got the logged information from the incident. A good exercise to do is root cause analysis. Now, this has to be not to find out who to blame, but it's to prevent a recurrence or a repeat of this event. Why? Because obviously it'll reduce costs if you can stop these undesirable events and incidents happening again, and increase your efficiencies because you're spending time delivering service and not fixing problems. And it should all be part of a culture, I would say, of continuous improvement in the organization. So again, I'm assuming you want to be better, you want to prevent repeats of incidents. The goal of root cause analysis is generally, what happened, how did it happen, why did it happen? And there are different techniques you can use to get to the root of it, which is the idea. I've just put a few up here, but if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find other root cause analysis techniques. The 5 whys is a very practical one. Ishikawa is more of a diagrammatic one, but I also often use a fault tree analysis. And I think we've spoken about this in the past. You can look on it in advance of something happening. I'm going to take an example now. You lose power to a system, and you can work back in the fault tree analysis the different causes of the loss of that power. But if I ask the 5 whys after an incident, well, why did we lose power to the main system? Because the UPS, the uninterruptible power supply, ran out of juice. Well, why did it run out of juice? Well, because the generator didn't start, because the SB had gone out. And why did the generator not start? Well, because it was too cold. Why was it too cold? Well, because the heating element that normally keeps the water going around the engine warm was defective. Now, if any of you know diesel engines, it's on a cold morning when it might be sub-zero that they might be slow to start. Previously, older cars, you had to preheat before you could start your engine. Generators still suffer from that. If you don't keep them warm, they might be sluggish to start. Now, why was the heating element defective? And maybe it's because the guy who used to check it retired 3 months ago, and nobody does it anymore. And you can see what I'm getting at here. You're trying to understand the root cause. And maybe it's a case of that control, that which was the facilities guy who used to just go and check the generator, once a month. When he left, that wasn't written down anywhere, or people didn't think it was important, and that control stopped being implemented. You have to ask the questions to find these things, and when you find them, then you can fix them. Whether it's a non-existent control or just an ineffective control. So now you understand how it happened and why it happened. But how did you handle the incident? Did you stay within the impact tolerances that you promised yourselves? Maybe published and told your customers that we'll never be out for more than 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Did you stay within the impact tolerances? And if you did or didn't, what was the impact on your customers, on the delivery of the services? Was it worse than you thought? Maybe you have to reduce those impact tolerances if you were getting complaints and you didn't think you'd get complaints in the first half hour. Did your processes work as expected? Did your plan work as expected? Were there things missing from the plan? Were the decisions that you made in getting this back up and running, were they appropriate at the time? Were they timely? Did you have all the people you needed to handle this? Was somebody on holidays? Did you have an alternate? Did you remember to communicate to staff, to customers, and to others, maybe the regulator? There's a lot of questions. I put up a lot of questions here that you can ask yourself with the objective, to improve how you handle it the next time. Now, it's important to ask these. You want to learn. You're not trying to beat up somebody, but just accept that the more often you do this, the better you will get. And the first time will be a disaster. Trust me, I've been there. Okay. So what do you do then with the lessons learned? Well, first thing is update your response plan, whether it's a procedure or the communications part of it, or the call lists. When you need to call people, maybe they're out of date. Maybe you need to retrain people on certain aspects of the response plan. When you, as you may have to, produce a report, whether it's for the senior management team or the board, about the incident, good to have this detail in it and what you are going to do to improve the next time. Because if I was on the board, I would say, okay, what are we doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Or if it does, that we have a better response. So be proactive on that. You might document changes to controls. You might have a lot of recommendations, but I would say at this stage, filter and focus. If you've got 20 recommendations coming out of it, be pragmatic. And if there's just 5 that you can implement, do those 5. Don't get swamped by all of the recommendations. Try and focus on the ones that matter. And finally, that wisdom that you now have, won, if you like, through this incident. There are forums where you can share that with others. And if you're in one of those forums, when other people, your peers, have an incident, they'll share it with you and you will learn from their incidents as well. And finally, just a summary. So record the decisions and the events as they're unfolding. Do a root cause analysis afterwards so you understand why it happened. And by it, I mean the event and the consequences. Ask yourself, could it have been prevented? And what could you do to do that? Could you have handled it better? And share with your peers. And finally, just don't forget to implement those improvement actions that you've identified. If you go through all of this exercise and you don't change anything, why did you bother? Okay. Took a bit longer than I thought, but I'll stay on if people have questions. I see there is one in the Q&A. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. Can you send us a copy of the incident logging form from Patricia? Yeah, if anybody's interested in that, I have one of those. We can do that. It's a straightforward enough thing in Excel. If you can imagine, date and time, maybe who's recording, what the team is, what the decision was, or what the event was, comment section. Anything else? Any other questions? Andrew, I'd be interested in the log form too. That's fine, Andrew. You can send me folks either send me an email. Happy to share that with you. But I think that's it. I think that's the essence of it. Learn from your lessons. Don't beat up anybody. Just improve your process. There's another question. The incident module, is there a standard way to use this? From Anonymous. If you're talking about calQrisk has an incident module. Is there a standard way to use this? Not, I wouldn't say standard way, but it is highly configurable. Fergal, thank you, Fergal. I hope you like these short form webinars. We call them lunchtime learning. And the idea is 15 minutes, try and focus on one issue and give you some food for thought. So while you're eating your sandwich, I hope you will chew on this food for thought as well. I'm going to leave it at that. If you, as I said, if you have any other questions, comments, I'm happy to receive them either at webinars where you registered or my own email address. So thank you for your attendance. Cheers. Bye-bye.